South Korea responded to North Korea's overnight test of an intercontinental ballistic missile within minutes, firing short-range missiles of its own into the sea and warning that miscalculation could lead to a preemptive strike.
For the first time since September, North Korea test-fired a ballistic missile Wednesday morning, which the South Korean and US militaries are saying was an ICBM. It flew far higher than any of North's previous missiles, and it's believed this missile could be powerful enough to reach anywhere in the United States.
South Korea responded to North Korea's overnight test of an intercontinental ballistic missile within minutes, firing short-range missiles of its own into the sea and warning that miscalculation could lead to a preemptive strike.
Joint Chiefs of Staff say the recent launch could be seen as a protest against the recent economic sanctions against the regime, as well as Washington reinstating North Korea as a state sponsor of terrorism. The South Korean military stressed it is never letting its guard down and is always ready to strike back.
The South Korean military is keeping close tabs on North Korea's military activities. Our military could destroy the origin of the provocation in nuclear facilities with precision on any given day from the ground, sea, or air.
South Korean forces launched precision strike missiles near the northern limit line in the EC just 6 minutes after the North Korean launch was detected. The JCS says it involved the Army's missile unit, one of the Navy's Aegis destroyers, and one of the Air Force's KF-16 fighter jets, each firing at a simulated target with the distance calibrated to match that of the location where North Korea test-fired its missile.
It's very concerning, it's very serious. But any argument for preventive war against North Korea must stand upon the argument that North Korea cannot be deterred, and I just think that's a fallacy. North Korea can be deterred.
South Korean President Moon Jae-in said Pyongyang's action endangered international peace and security.
South Korea and the United States, along with the international community, have no other choice but to continue applying strong pressure and sanctions.
Commenting on the North's missile test, U.S. President Donald Trump told reporters, "We will take care of it." He did not elaborate, but said there was no change in approach to North Korea.
Nothing changed. Nothing changed. We have a very serious approach, and nothing changed. We take it very seriously.
Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe called for an emergency meeting of the United Nations Security Council. While the cost for Pyongyang may increase, analysts say it is not going to give up its nuclear and missile programs.
These capabilities are something that cannot be negotiated away. It's part of their identity, it's part of their national security policy. They view all of the UN Security Council resolutions prohibiting these activities as illegitimate, and they will continue to challenge those UN Security Council resolutions and challenge the international community.
Pyongyang says it needs a strong deterrent to prevent an attack from the United States.
Korea fired a long-range ballistic missile early Wednesday morning, identified by the regime as a newly developed Hwasong-15 ICBM. The missile was fired at around 3:17 a.m. from Pyeongseong, a city located 30 kilometers north of Pyongyang. It flew 960 kilometers eastward for about 50 minutes and landed in the waters west of Japan. The missile was launched at a lofted angle, reaching 4,500 kilometers, higher than any other previously launched North Korean missile. Hwasong-15 is seen to be an upgraded version of the Hwasong-14 ICBM. Compared to the Hwasong-14 ICBMs launched in July, experts say Hwasong-15 seems to have a stronger engine and so flies farther.
The previous Hwasong-14 missiles could fly up to 8,000 or 9,000 kilometers, reaching the western part of the U.S., but Wednesday's missile will be able to fly 11,000 to 12,000 kilometers. That covers the whole United States, including the eastern area.
And Pyongyang aimed to make an even greater impact out of this missile launch, launching it at early dawn.
Firing a missile at 3 o'clock in the morning is indeed a sudden attack and helps the regime see how quick South Korea and the US are to respond. Also, as it's daytime in the US, the North aimed to send an even more alarming message to the US.
But in contrast to how a couple of the regime's missiles flew over Japan in August and September and fell in the waters east of Japan, this time Pyongyang decided to step back.
If the North makes its missile land near the US, then the political shock it sends to the world will be too large for it to handle, which may possibly lead to stronger international pressure.
The other experts suggested this may be rather because North Korea was not able to make technological progress in other areas like re-entry technology.
The North didn't mention re-entry technology in today's announcement, and instead of shooting the missile at a normal trajectory and
east of Japan, this time Pyongyang decided to step back.
If the North makes its missile land near the US, then the political shock it sends to the world will be too large for it to handle, which may possibly lead to stronger international pressure.
The other experts suggested this may be rather because North Korea was not able to make technological progress in other areas like re-entry technology.
The North didn't mention re-entry technology in today's announcement, and instead of shooting the missile at a normal trajectory and let it pass over Japan, Pyongyang once again fired its missile at a lofted angle. This implies that it may have not solved other technological issues like missile re-entry.
Several hours later at noon, the North acknowledged the launch in a televised statement, saying it had successfully tested a new type of ICBM. But despite that claim, there are still question marks over the technology used and the regime's intentions. Our Kwon Chang-ho explains.
At 12 noon local North Korean time, a special announcement was broadcast on North Korea's state media TV. It declared that a brand new weapon had been successfully launched early Wednesday morning, the Hwasong-15 ICBM. More advanced than the previous Hwasong-14 model, according to the state media, the missile could reach all of the mainland United States. It declared that this rocket meant that the regime had met its goal of completing its nuclear weapons development program. Leader Kim Jong-un, who oversaw the launch, added that the North had realized the completion of its state nuclear force. However, although this rocket suggests a leap forward in the regime's ballistic weapons technology, there is still further to go.
No one has ever declared that they have completed ICBM development after performing high trajectory launches. Unless North Korea fires this new Hwasong-15 at a regular trajectory, successfully re-enters the atmosphere and hits a specific target, it cannot be said to have a fully formed ICBM.
Pyongyang's statement also said the missile was a victory achieved by the people despite difficulties imposed on the regime. However, the statement concludes by saying North Korea is a responsible nuclear power that loves peace and that would not pose a threat to anyone as long as the interests of North Korea are not infringed upon. This statement and the nature of the launch suggest that while Pyongyang wanted to carry out a provocation, they were also wary of too strong a reaction.
It is a provocation, but it is a very measured one. It didn't fly over Japan like before, and there is not enough evidence to say it is a completed ICBM.
So far, no footage or photos have been released of Wednesday's launch, but they are expected to come within the next day or two, whereupon they'll be scrutinized to verify just how far the regime has come in its nuclear weapons technology. As expected, the global community has come forth to condemn North Korea in reaction to the missile test launch. The United Nations Security Council will convene later in New York on Wednesday to try to figure out how to deal with Pyongyang and its ongoing provocations. Cho Sung-min has the latest.
North Korea's ICBM launch on Wednesday has not only spiked tensions in the region, but also triggered strong condemnation from world powers. Earlier in the day, US President Trump told reporters this is a situation that the US will handle without elaborating further. Trump also said the latest provocation will not change Washington's approach to North Korea. However, Secretary of State Rex Tillerson implied that there still remains a diplomatic solution to the North Korea issue, as he said diplomatic options remain viable and open, and that the US remains committed to finding a peaceful path to denuclearization. Japan called the latest North Korean provocation a violent act that can never be tolerated. Prior a phone talk with President Moon Jae-in, Japanese Prime Minister Abe said Tokyo will maximize pressure on Pyongyang.
Japan will not back down in the face of a provocation, but will maximize pressure on North Korea. We'll continue to protect the lives and livelihoods of the people of Japan under the strong Japan-US alliance.
China, through its foreign ministry on Wednesday, expressed grave concern over the latest North Korean missile test, which Pyongyang followed up with a self-congratulatory statement saying its missiles can reach continental U.S. territory. Beijing's foreign ministry spokesman Geng Shang said during a daily briefing that North Korea's action clearly violates international resolutions banning ballistic missile launches.
China expresses grave concern and opposition to North Korea's launch activity. China strongly urges the North Korean side to abide by the UN Security Council's relevant resolutions and cease taking actions that increase tensions on the Korean Peninsula.
He also followed up with a message that China hopes all concerned parties will act thoughtfully to preserve peace and stability in the Northeast Asian region. Russia's take on the missile launch wasn't so different. The Kremlin said on Wednesday that the latest missile test launched by North Korea will provoke further tensions in the region and hinder current efforts to find a peaceful solution to the crisis. Spokesperson Dmitry Peskov told reporters that all relevant sides to this issue need to remain calm, which is very necessary to prevent the worst-case scenario on the Korean Peninsula. Following Seoul, Washington, and Tokyo's request, the UN Security Council is soon to hold an emergency meeting at the UN headquarters in New York on Wednesday afternoon local time to address Pyongyang's ongoing provocations. 조성민, 아리랑 뉴스.